Okay, here we go. I think we are ready. Just gonna switch a setting on my. Oh no, it's on the right setting. We're good. Uh, welcome everyone to Watercolor Mastery, the renewal sessions. Bear with me because this is the first time we're doing a live kind of refresher course, maybe is a good way to phrase it. And I don't know if course is really the right word since we're just going to be meeting through October here once a week and talking about what we've experienced since completing watercolor mastery back in the spring. And I use the term completing loosely because what happened in watercolor mastery was really that I opened the door to an ongoing process that never goes away. Now you're stuck with it for life. This idea that we find our style and we find growth through a cycle of technique, focus, and play. And we get to figure out where we belong on that spectrum and work in both of those spaces to become our own favorite artist. And I just want to welcome you here today. Welcome you back. I was looking back this last weekend. We just invited a new batch of students in to do a fall session of watercolor mastery. And I think this time it really is the last time we'll be doing watercolor mastery in just this format. I've wanted to make some changes to the course for quite a long time. Not anything drastic. It's more I really wanted to be very bold and confident in addressing primarily mindset issues, actually. And so when we move into mastery, talking about how we might do a watercolor mastery style course in 2021, I think we'll be really stepping away from a lot of the step-by-step demonstrations. Technique focus is found in a lot of my other courses, and we'll be more spending a lot of time coaching and mentoring artists in finding teaching you how to teach yourselves and how to be in a relationship with this art medium that you've chosen. So those are that's what's been on my mind lately. And as we launched Watercolor Mastery for the fall session, I just started thinking about the feedback I've heard from Watercolor Mastery students over the last 2-3 years that we've run this course. Because it's really easy for me to be critical of what I have to offer, to really diminish what I have to give and what I have to teach. I think we just do that. It's the imposter syndrome. It's looking at the course content. It's so familiar to me. It's so much a part of my life and process that it feels like it's not enough because I guess I'm focused on my inadequacies. And so to look back and see the students who are telling me, coming up to me in in-person workshops and telling me how their art has had a turning point when they went through watercolor mastery. When I get emails about that and testimonials, I want to focus on that. I want to remember how much learning these principles and these approaches to art, how they changed me and how they're changing you. And that's amazing. It's real, and it makes me really excited for this new crop of students. And that's really what I wanted to say. I was actually a little bolder than I usually am in speaking up and saying, there are people who are getting my emails who really need this course. And I want to see them in the course. So it's really so that's where we're at. Now, one thing I did over the weekend was I sent out an email to my Mastery alumni, you guys, and asked you how you were doing. I wanted to know what it's been like for you since Watercolor Mastery wrapped up. How have you been feeling? How have you been getting through the last several months? And I think we're about 6 months since the course finished up. And I just wanted to share some of the things that students had to say, those of you who replied to my emails. And maybe some of you can relate to this, some of these thoughts as well. There's things here that are so encouraging and exciting for me, true signs that watercolor, that you are stepping into that mastery mindset. That was so exciting for me to see. And then there was some willingness to be very honest about the struggles. That's part of the mastery mindset too. So we're going to talk about those. Karen wrote, and she said, over the last few months, I was fighting to keep the courage to put myself and my art out into the world. I had my first few shows, sold a few pieces, and was starting to get to the place that I was feeling a bit comfortable to open those doors that one needs to do to promote their art, and then everything ground to a stop. And we know for most of us, the last 6 months have really impacted our lifestyle. And even if they haven't impacted your lifestyle, your mindset, the climate, the emotional temperature of our planet right now is pretty hot, and it's very, very stressful. And so we're finding that affects our art. Karen says she sees that happening. There's an interesting dynamic that happened, I think, for most of us. This idea that, things have slowed down, I'm home more, I'm going to have more time to paint. But then because, our emotions were very impacted by what's going on in the world, we've definitely, that did a number on our inspiration. And I feel like I've painted less than I would have liked to over the last 6 months. Part of that's because I've been focused on meeting the needs of my students. I've been focused on relationship as much as I can in the Fearless Artist community, and in sharing, just encouragement for artists. It leaves me with not a lot of emotional energy left to paint, and I'm okay with that. And one thing I appreciated about Karen's email is her comment here. My painting practice is at a slower pace, but that is fine. I'm being much more selective of what I paint, what I finish, and what I want to spend my time doing. And I love that Karen, that you commented that you're moving more slowly than perhaps you would have liked, or what your goals would have been, but you've chosen to be fine with that and accept that it's a part of kind of the way things are right now. And I really appreciated that idea that I'm seeing that I'm not doing what I thought I would do, and I'm okay with it. So I really appreciate that. Marla comments, I paint most days, and I've continued to apply many of the practices we learned in mastery, value study, color study, etc., technique focus. And she comments as well, I've created quite a few pieces I love. I don't play enough, but I'm trying to make more 5x7 cards, which includes play. And I like that. Small goals to bring that playfulness in. Using small pieces of paper makes it feel less risky a lot of the time, or makes us feel like we're not wasting paper. Always a good way to overcome some of those mental hurdles that we have. Sue Healy comments, I had a good stretch of time when I just couldn't get myself painting. Although I was still interested in painting, I planned paintings in my head, I made sketches, edited reference photos, watched videos, researched American and European watercolorists. I love that, using art history to inspire you, but sitting down to do it was hard. And, I love that you make it very clear that you are still doing the work of painting, you're doing the mental work, and that can have a good impact when you are ready to sit down and paint again. Sometimes we just can't muster the energy to pick up the brush. That's okay. The work we're doing in our minds really does strengthen the painting when we come back to paint again. So you're staying active. You're doing the inner landscape work, which is going to come out in your paintings. And I was thinking about when my children were small, and I used to have ideas for paintings that I didn't have time to paint. I wasn't painting nearly as often as I do now. And I felt like my paintings, when I did sit down to paint, if that painting had been brewing in my head for weeks or months, it was actually a better painting when it came out, because I'd spent so much time thinking it through. So don't diminish that time spent thinking and planning. Sue continues to comment about the planning she did, the decision she did make that helped spur her into painting again. She also, this was really good. She says, I decided to stop painting variations of the same landscape over and over and work on colorful sunsets based on all the reference photos I collected. They turned into landscapes with brutal, fiery skies. My emotions, struggling through daily cancer treatment and isolation and uncertainty, came through as slash and burn. Sue, I really hope you don't mind me sharing this, because I so appreciate your willingness to talk about how your emotions were coming out in your paintings, how you were willing to change direction from all the planning you were doing for landscape paintings, and just let yourself work through feelings and make art a place where you could dig into your emotions. That's inspiring to me and encouraging for me as well. Dolores says, I really miss those carefree days just a short time ago when painting was constantly on my mind. I felt I found a great community and a teacher to inspire me, and I felt so eager to learn and try. I still walk into my paint studio and look at all my attempts to create something that was beautiful, and hoping for the former days. And then we have she goes on to talk about some of the things that have made staying inspired really difficult. We feel isolation, we feel stress. If you have trauma or pain in your past, that can filter into your practice as well, and it can really impact how we're processing everything that's going on in the world. And to find those little glimpses of hope is really, really powerful. And recognize that there is hope to be found. And Dolores shares that here. She's back to working again, having some purpose in her days, and that's really valuable. I appreciate what you said here, Dolores. I want to paint again. Not there yet, but you're making that your goal. I purposely kept the Fearless community active, hoping one day I would feel inspired again. I believe it will happen, but I am still fighting the psychological conditions I've been experiencing and that have been placed on me due to my circumstances. I truly believe it will come back to me, and I do see myself painting again. I think I need more days of feeling everything is okay and right, and I will find the desire again. One thing I wanted to comment, in so many of your emails that I received talking about watercolor mastery and talking about your feelings over the last 6 months, is how mindful you are. And I think this is part of the type of people that are drawn into the watercolor mastery course, but I also think this is something we learn through art, that we are aware of what we're feeling and thinking, and we are creating conditions to overcome our obstacles or move around them, or to see possibility and potential and hope. We are working toward our own healing, and I see that in how, because we do that in art. We work toward our growth in art. We work to overcome the things we're struggling with. We work to find new ways of doing things when our technique isn't strong enough. We are always trying to, work despite our limitations, and it trickles over, it overflows into our life as well. And I'm so, it's just beautiful to see, and it so encouraged me as I read through your updates. Judy's making some plans for her painting. Judy Daniels, you're making some plans for your paintings. And you had a suggestion that I thought was a great idea. She says, I'm considering using some of my oil paintings as a reference subject matter research for abstracts or abstractions in watercolor, bright and bold watercolors. What do you think of that idea? After all, I've already invested time and study into these pieces and am therefore familiar with them. I love this idea. I think, in fact, I've done it myself, where I've taken a painting that I liked, a watercolor painting that I liked, and just to shake myself up, tried to paint it as an oil painting, or tried to do an abstract version of a realistic painting, or, just taking, something that's worked for me in another medium, and how do I make that into a watercolor? How do I make that work? And so great idea. I think you should go for it, Judy. Stacy comments her life changed with COVID, having her family at home, being busy with family and other activities. And she's also taking a look here. With raising the family, she's trying to find a balance where watercolor isn't something that makes her grumpy when her family steals her away from the studio. Been there, been there, Stacy. That's my life. How do we walk away when we get interrupted, and with grace and kindness? And so I appreciate those thoughts. And just making that goal, she says, an almost weekly sketch. And I like that. Small goals. It doesn't have to be every day. If I get a weekly sketch in, I'm going to feel happy about that. So yes, absolutely. Finding a balance between enjoyment and discipline. Yes. Shirlene comments, I've struggled to maintain any continuity in my painting practice. There have been a number of reasons for this. One is that I worked so intensely during the mastery course to try and learn as much as I could before it finished that I was somewhat burnt out for a bit. Yes, I can relate to that. I can imagine that there's that need for a little bit of a break, put the brush down, look around. When I was a kid, I love reading. I still do. But I would read anything I could get my hands on. And if we were on a road trip, I would read the whole time. And my mom would always tell me, you need to rest your eyes, lift your head up, look out the window, focus on something far away for a while. And I think we need to do that with our painting practice too. My mom's full of good advice. Shirlene took about a week away camping, and so that's helping to restore and help her feel ready to paint again. Sue's just commenting in the chat here, digging deep for motivation as we approach our Canadian winter. I really don't want to look toward winter with dread this year myself. It's been a priority for me to find a way to create moments of joy every day, moments of refreshment, and that means maybe taking a walk, which I've been really struggling to make the time to do since my kids are back in school and our schedules changed again. So we really are just trying to find that rhythm again. And I'm seeing that coming up in the comments as well as in my emails that I've been reading here. Just that struggle to find motivation, to find that rhythm. And so let's just talk about that for a second. Today, I want to just let you know what's going on today. We're because I was trying to figure out how do we do these renewal sessions and provide some encouragement for you and some motivation. And so I wanted to tell you today about how you've encouraged me and how I'm seeing a mastery mindset in the things you're telling me about how your journey's been for the last 6 months. Next week, we're going to be, and I think we'll be able to make a little bit of time to just get back to kind of our week 1 emphasis, which was on finding who you are through play. And so we're going to talk about that in just a moment, and I think I have a little time for a demo for you too. Diane Albert comments, she says, I think the biggest, she comments that she's trying to figure out her style. I think the biggest thing I'm conflicted with is I see paintings that you or Kaz, Layla, or Nancy do that are very loose, and I can relate and love them. I don't feel that I understand enough of myself in how we express that. And so she sees things she loves. You want to be able to express that. And then she's not sure she's feeling supported. She says, I know my family doesn't understand this style at all, so there's no immediate feedback here. And she compares watercolor, the looser style of watercolor, to improvisational jazz. We have, if you're a musician, we have very structured symphonic music. We have improvisational jazz, and there's a spectrum there between things that are planned and very structured. My daughter's been learning piano, and I didn't realize, but once you learn to read music, it's all about expression. And so learning how to play these songs where you want to get all the notes perfect and have this beautiful expression the way it was written is how she's being taught. And now that she's in grade 12, she's in her last year of piano, and she's learning to improvise and just play beautiful worship music for church and so forth. And she's really enjoying improvising and the freedom she gets there. And so she's got this amazing structure that she's learned in her piano lessons. And then she's starting to play and improvise and finding who she is in all of that. And we're doing the same in watercolor. And I think what Diane comments here is, she says, much like music, I think my painting jazz, is rather immature at this point, and I'd like to have to think less when I play. And I feel you there, Diane. I think it's much easier to be loose and free the better we get at technique, which is why we spend time exercising our skill in technique and building those brush miles, trusting that the hours we're putting in will pay off. And one thing I would recommend and encourage all of you to do is to invite a lot of art into your life. I have social media so that I can see art, so that I can look at paintings on Facebook, so that I can follow a lot of artists on Instagram. Instagram is actually my preference these days because it's just pictures, and I have a diverse variety of artists in different mediums that post in my Instagram feed. And inviting all of those different styles in really opens me up to feel free to do whatever kind of jazz inspires me. Yes, and Diane comments, you need to know the rules first in order to break them. I think there is an aspect there that applies to watercolor as well. I really think we want to, we're in a relationship with watercolor, and I wanted to just talk about that. Let me just see if I'm missing anything here. There's a couple more emails I want to read, but before we get to that, I just want to talk about the relationship we have with art. I've been thinking a lot about relationships lately because the world is so crazy, and we have friends who we have been seeing despite, I feel like we have relationships that have stayed close despite the lockdown, and we have relationships that are strained and struggling. And I've been thinking a lot about the kind of friend that I want to be. The kind of friend I want to be when things are hard, and when my friends are struggling, and when I'm struggling, what kind of friends do I want to have? And I'm bringing this up because in making art, we are in a relationship. And I always have said that it's a relationship with watercolor, but I wonder if it isn't more a relationship with ourselves. When I'm in the studio, it's just me by myself with the paper, and the voices in my head. And the voices in our heads can say a lot of unpleasant things. And we've talked about that before. And we have work to banish negativity. And yet, I think sometimes we're not saying overtly unkind things anymore, maybe. I'm not telling myself that I'm worthless and that nothing I do is ever going to turn out, but I still am putting pressure on myself to perform a certain way. And something that I think has been very beautiful, I'm going to get really personal here just for a second. Something that I think has been really beautiful is my grandma is 90 now, and she, over the last couple of years, has had a number of these TIAs, they're little mini strokes, and they've taken her memory. And she's not the person that she was when I was a teenager. And I used to go and hang out with her and tell her all my boy troubles. She's not that same person anymore. She cannot meet my needs. And she doesn't need to. And I think it's been really, really beautiful to see the way my family, the people in her life, we get to just love her, even though, what she's able to contribute isn't there anymore. We love her for who she was in many ways more than who she is now, and we just get to love her. And I want to come into the studio and I want to tell myself that it's okay it's okay to just be alone and take all of the pressure off, not have to even paint anything, but just to be okay in that space. And just all the demands are gone. I want to be a friend who doesn't make demands. And and that's what I'm learning from my relationship with my grandma, and how it's changed over the years with her not being able to give what she was able to give. And I want to be that kind of friend to myself. I don't think I can be that kind of friend to other people if I can't do that to myself as well. And so I don't know. That's where I'm at. That's what I've been thinking about coming into the studio, and just, it's okay if I don't even move the brush. It's okay if nothing turns out. It's okay if that last painting that I painted it's okay to just make painting my quiet, safe space. And I want to make painting as safe as possible. I think that's where I'm going with this. So just be thinking about that. Are you really as safe in your studio alone with yourself as you want to be? And how can we make it just a little bit safer? How can we be that person to ourselves that we want other people to be for us? So I would just want to encourage you with that. That's what I want. That's where we're going, and it's hard. It's really, really hard. Okay, Mary Daly. I'm going to read some more emails here. Mary Daly comments, I feel most productive when I'm working on a series, learning something new with each new version and simplifying with each step. I like this idea that she recognizes how encouraged she is when she's able to see that progress. So series are a good place for her to do that. She says, now I'm in between series and feeling a little lost. I try to fill the time with warm-ups, just dealing with color and flow, but I don't feel the same sense of growth. We want to see growth. It's really hard to have faith when we don't. That's why some of this stuff is so beneficial. I'm in the middle of a lot of paintings, and none of them have turned out yet. And so there's a little element of blind faith that's involved there. Hopefully I can show you some of them in just a moment. Linda Sellers, I got to meet Linda at my Vernon workshop in southern BC in August. And she comments that she's been able to paint with a couple of other mastery students in Vernon there, and they've actually basically created a little art group. We've begun hanging. I can't read anymore. Our paintings in the various places that are gradually opening up. We are also planning to put in a proposal to our Vernon Vertigo art gallery in hopes to show our new art. And it's been so exciting for me to see artists from my mastery course now stepping out and hanging in galleries and putting their work in competitions and just making that name for themselves as artists. I know that's not a goal for all of us, but if that's your drive to have the courage to step out and do that, I know it's really scary at first. And so I just want to encourage you. People are doing it, and they're seeing their work be well received, and that's really exciting. Linda comments as well, I personally am finding it tricky to be consistent as to how I show my work. Some paintings I mount on a wood cradle panel. Some I stretch the watercolor paper over a wood frame, and others I mat and frame. I don't know if it's a big issue to have to frame everything together. I'm trying to figure that out myself, because I really do like the panel mounting technique. It makes it so much easier to ship work if you want to show it out of town, or sell it or mail it. And it looks, one thing I really like about mounting paintings on a wood panel is it takes that barrier of the glass away, and people can get right up close to your art. To me, it feels like you're sharing your art with just a few less barriers between the viewer and the art. And that, I think, is really, I think it just has more impact that way. On the other hand, I do like framing some things under glass. Some paintings just seem like they're paintings to go under glass, and others just seem like they need to go on a panel. So, do what feels right, and I think you'll find your way. Anne has to share. Anne, I thought your list here made me a little bit tired. Anne Grassock says, I've been painting. I'm still trying to find the right mentor for me. She has a background with being very strict about reproducing what she sees in her reference photos, and she's wanting to move beyond that. And I love that you've been taking a diverse number of courses. She's taken an 8-week course with Ray Andrews, David, who I haven't heard of, so I'm going to have to look her up. A 4-day workshop with David Smith. I love his work. He does some really beautiful, beautiful art. Marnie Ward, who actually, I think she's a BC artist. I believe I've followed her beautiful florals for quite a long time. Ian Roberts, who shares, actually, Ian Roberts has an interview in my Fearless Artist community, and his book, Creative Authenticity, is, I consider it a must read for someone thinking about artistic mindset. And then she's got a list as well of other artists she'd like to take workshops in, and areas where she wants to improve and grow her skills. And actually, I think number 1 on that list was composition, which makes me laugh because I think composition is one of those things we always want to get better at, and it never ever goes away. I'm starting to get a little bit, personally, I'm starting to get a little bit bored with the compositions I tend to rely on, because I tend to go with the same. If I'm doing abstract work or loose paintings, I tend to go with the same composition every time, which makes it easy to build an abstract on. But there comes a point where you kind of start wanting something more from your art. Appreciate the conversation that's happening in the chat. And Marcia says, many of the teachers I watch online often say something like, "Oh, I like what's happening here." It's an openness to what's going on in the paper. It's like they are in a dance with the water, and even professionals are surprised by watercolor. Yes, great tips on loosening up. Shelley Welch says, my occupational therapist has recommended eye exercises that work for brain reflex integration as well as warm-ups. I love that. We're thinking watercolor. We're always kind of digging into wanting to grow our skills. And everything we see is, we're always thinking, how can I apply that to watercolor? That is my life. And Robin's linked up the interview with Ian Roberts. If you're a member of the Fearless Artist community, you'll be able to see it there. I'm going to just switch my camera over. I wanted to take the time to do a little warm-up painting with you since we talked about playful painting. And I think my microphone should be able to still pick me up as I move around the corner. I wanted to show you what I have today. This is something I have not used in Watercolor Mastery, so it'll be a little bit new. And that's this multimedia mineral paper. And there's, it says it's made from rocks, not trees. And it's it's bright white. It's actually not a very heavy weight. And it has kind of a, it's not as slippery as Yupo, I would say. But it definitely has a little bit of texture to it. But also I feel a little bit of slickness here. And I'm just going to turn on one more light. So I just thought I'd do a little bit of playful painting on this mineral paper. You can see how it plays, and if you want to, you can give it a try and order some yourself. There's a number of different brands of mineral paper, and I'm sure there's already people commenting in the chat, because the only one I've been able to find locally is this one made by Yasutomo. And it says made from rocks, not trees, bright white vellum surface, and it's acid free. So let's just see what we can do with a little bit of this mineral paper. I'm going to be playful, but I'm also going to be thinking about this little landscape that I sketched here. You can see that dark line of trees. And I've been painting that on paper, but I'd like to try to I just did one version so far, and so I'd like to try the mineral paper. I can see it already feels like it's pooling like Yupo. Has that very fluid, puddly effect where the paint sits on the surface. And let's put our line of trees in. And I don't have great experience with Yupo. I don't know the best techniques to use for it. And I kind of think it's nice to work from time to time in a place of not knowing. You know, if you don't know the rules, you don't have to feel stressed about breaking them. I know that if you're struggling, you know, getting acquainted with some of the tips and techniques can be really helpful. But on the other hand, it's nice to have no one to tell you you're wrong. So right away my gray is kind of migrating up. That's palette dirt and cobalt blue. And the palette dirt I have is has a little bit of Bloodstone Genuine in it, so I know it's going to granulate quite a bit. Let's tilt that a little bit. Just checking to make sure that you can hear me, and letting this flow a little bit. That's really kind of pretty. I'm going to just grab this little modeler brush because I've been enjoying using it. I think one thing I like is it's often a little bit drier. When I work with this brush, I tend to use less water because the stiffness of the brush actually means it carries less water when I bring it to the paper. And then I love the little comb marks it makes. So I've been playing with that and making that a little bit of a signature a style for this phase of my watercolor journey. And you know, I think it's a little bit interesting that when you've been painting for a couple dozen years, like I have, it's really kind of cool that you can kind of see your journey in the supplies you use and the marks you make. You know, it creates a timeline that I think can be really fun to notice. And when I first started painting, I would date my paintings because that's what local artists did. And I stopped doing that along the way because I realized the road kind of comes like that, I think. Because I realized a painting should not be defined by how old it is. And a lot of times there's this assumption that because a painting's newer, it's better in some way, and that's not always true. So I used a little Aussie Red Gold, a little Cobalt Blue, and right now I'm grabbing, what is that? Mars Orange Deep, which is made by Core. I really like that color. I forgot all about it. Haven't used it in a while. You know, and working with this color, and there's some beautiful granulation happening up in this corner here. Working with this paper, rather, it really forces me to let go of control. We've got a road here. This is a walk I took with my family on Sunday afternoon. And the leaves are pretty much all off the trees, but there's still lots of color. And look at how pretty that is flowing down. We'll just let that flow, I think, in its way. Yeah, I like that. And with the drier brush, we can add some pops of strong pigment. This is, I think, the Quin Sienna. Because I moved the Mars Orange and then I forgot to reach for it. And I think if I just touch my brush in lightly, the color will move a little less. And a purer pigment's a little stickier, so it flows a little less as well. And I'm trying to be I was going to say I'm trying to be bolder with color, but I'm also trying to be more subtle. Uh, I think often in the early stages of a painting, I'll often rush ahead. This is supposed to be a road, so I'm going to let some gray flow in here. But that's also making a puddle where this yellow's flowing out. So we'll see where that ends up. In the beginning of a painting, I want to be able to have those subtle washes of color, but I also want those bold, brave pops of brilliant color. I've really been liking cobalt blue. Let's just put a few little dabs of the cobalt, maybe to break up the painting and bring the eye. I don't know if that was the right color to pick. And I'm going to take a little dagger striper and just pull some of the color across. It's so hard right now to be okay with this possibly turning into a muddy mess. Remember, taking off those expectations, that desire to constantly perform is really what my goal is for myself. You know, I want to be that friend I wish I had. And that's the friend that says, let's just hang out. Let's just be together. Really, if you haven't tried Bloodstone Genuine, I really would recommend it. I don't have it yet in one of my palette cups, and it looks purple on the label, but I think of it almost as a black because it does, I feel like it's more of a rich kind of reddish brown with a lot of black in it. It's got a lot of, all the granular stuff, the sediment that's in it reads as a black to me. So it is going down as a bit of a violet, working with a little bit of pure bloodstone on my brush. In fact, I'm going to put a little bit in the sky here. And just, it is like Yupo in that when you go over areas that are starting to dry, I'm definitely seeing some movement of the layers underneath. So you want to work with a really light touch. And that's that reminder that, you know, to let that first layer kind of exist and not to fuss. And I think that's the thing we learned from Yupo and this mineral paper is that second guessing isn't really our friend. Learning to make a good decision the first time, or learning to accept our decision as our decision from that first brush stroke, is really something we can and should all learn. It's great to learn strategies for correcting mistakes, but it's also really, really valuable to just set that brush stroke down and then move on to the next one, and you know, create strokes that continue to enhance what's already happening on the paper, rather than continually trying to undo what you've done and maybe didn't like. I've been mixing my cobalt blue with the bloodstone and with a little piemontite. And those piemontites are really beautiful hue, so we're going to just use that, just a little bit of it. I'm kind of wrapping up here because I have no idea what I'm doing. And I'm just, you know, again, that playfulness, showing up to watch the paint. And I kind of like that right now there's a lot of stuff that's just kind of bleeding together here. It's really hard to tell where the sky ends and the land begins and vice versa. And for someone who, you know, it's very easy for us to want to have a very literal interpretation of our reference photo. Working with paper that doesn't let us do that, at least not in this first layer where everything wants to run together. That's really, you know, that's good for us. Okay. It's going to change as well as it dries. It's going to be something completely different. Um, Probably, my guess. I know it is with Yupo. I often see a lot more hard edges, although I feel like the mineral paper might not do quite as many hard edges as the Yupo. We'll have to wait and see. Oh, it looks totally different from actually from my computer screen as I switch over to my other camera. Funny. Do you want to see the original photo? I can show that to you actually. I have it here on my computer. Um, so this is the original photo. You saw the tiny sketch, and now you're seeing the inspiration for it. And yeah, just the connectedness of everything. Dorothy asks, can we see the finished painting next week and talk about the mineral paper? I've never heard of that. Yeah, mineral paper was new for me too. Um, I'm not sure if anybody else commented on. Yeah, Terraskin. That's right. Evelyn asked, "Is mineral paper similar to Terraskin?" I think it's very much the same. Evelyn, I was looking for Terraskin. I found the mineral paper. I thought these are probably the same. I will when it's dry. Yeah, I can show it to you next week. I probably won't paint more on that painting. Again, it's a warm up. It serves its purpose. I show up. I watch the paint. I enjoy the beautiful flow, and I let watercolor be what it is. Again, no expectations, no demands, just coming to have my little safe space. There's no social media, there's no news, there's no need to wear a mask in my own studio and feel that, I just want to escape. I want a safe space. And I really think that we as artists are so blessed because we have this ability to be attuned to what we need in a way that not everybody is conscious of. And I would encourage you to be thinking about that this week. Next week, we're going to be talking about, we're going to just dive into, I think, color and value. We're going to be talking a little bit about that just as a quick little refresher and as to what we've been learning, what we learned in Watercolor Mastery. You are encouraged, of course, anytime that you want to go through your Watercolor Mastery course content and just work on areas where you feel a need to kind of have a refresher. I go back to the content of Watercolor Mastery. I don't physically watch the lessons because they're in here, but these are the things that I go back to, my foundations that I build on every time I come into the studio. I'm evaluating what I need and just working to continually find that balance between technique and expression and remind myself of why I'm here and have a little faith and trust in my ability to create the paintings that make me truly happy. So I just want to encourage you with that. If you're feeling like there's still a lot of unknowns in your watercolor painting practice, you are standing shoulder to shoulder with me. We are in the same boat because I'm in the same place. Creating art is all about asking questions, continually looking at that what if, and can I do this? And can I figure out how to paint this? And can I grow my skills so that I can do that better? We're working on that all the time. And so now we get to work on it together, and that gets to be ongoing. So thank you for joining me today. We will be back here again same time next week, and we'll be looking at playing with color again and talking about value. So I'll see you here next week. Bye for now.